We're gonna have to provide them locator information.
Yes.
We may even have to pay a third party to come in and do locator. Because that's something that from a implementation standpoint, they're gonna want to negotiate that in contract. And that's something that's very time consuming and dedicated resources for that. We don't really have dedicated resources for doing locator stuff. It's like a project in the park for the drainage on the beach line. That contractor does his own location. So a road project and in that project, they do the locator stuff. For us to locate all those utilities with, there's probably gonna be a cost to that because that's not.
So that's in kind.
If we do it ourselves,
Yes.
yeah, but otherwise.
Oh, if you farm it
I will
out.
have to come to council and ask for a vendor for it.
So Rich, you can see in the committed funds section here that the totals that you were looking at before are net of all of these commitments.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is a project that everything we can think of that we're committed to is on this spreadsheet.
Okay.
So this broadband project is first in line. I mean, I don't think we can sit around and go, well, somebody's gonna come up with a great project 2 years from now or 3 years from now. We need to fund this thing so the contractor and then, the contract can be negotiated and this thing can start.
And I would agree with that.
The quicker we get it done, the quicker we get it out to the public, and it helps economic development in this town.
Most of the other projects that are coming down the pike in the way of sewer, et cetera, and the infrastructure for the Collins project are all going to be met with bond,
Right.
Well,
pretty much.
Well, that particular project,
I remember making that decision. That's
Well, something, it would be either a bond or something.
yeah.
It's
in
not
that-
going
in
to
the
be
case of
paid
that-
for it all 1 year.
In the case of that
Right, I know.
project, they're looking at.
Yeah, this is one and done.
expenditure.
Yeah.
We would be creating a new TIF district for that project.
Right.
That
Its own
TIF
revenue.
district would, and I'll get to that with this next agenda item. That TIF district will generate X amount of revenue that will be determined by Baker Tilly that can turn around and finance the utility infrastructure side of things. The CRC would probably be asked to commit a certain percentage of that over the course of, say, 15 years or 20 years of the 25-year life of that TIF. So it would be a self-sustained project with a certain percentage of the revenue, where they couldn't
With a revenue
commit
stream.
that revenue to something else, has to stay committed to that if we work out that agreement with the
Right.
developer. So it's outside of these revenues is kind of what I'm getting at.
Right.
Right.
This, let me ask this question again, we feel good about this company. We've seen evidence of what they've done before and it's been very, very successful. And I don't know how many meetings I've sat in over the years at the academy where we were right on the edge of nirvana, with some new technological thing and, turned around, it wasn't even close. So I'm sure this is fiber optics is there and it's the way to go and it's what we need. But there is a guarantee that this in fact will deliver what they say will deliver.
Yeah, they installed in Urban, Plymouth, they're all over Marshall County, they're all over the state.
They're in Argus,
Uh,
not served, but I mean, fiber optics.
LaPorte, Westfield,
Okay, yeah.
Westfield, Westfield.
We wanted to work with them in the past or RTC, a company similar to serve. But 3-4 years ago, that bill was $5 million. And that's exactly what one of our proposals was, for buried lines for $5 million versus $500,000.
Yeah.
Because the other company that submitted that proposal, they're not capitalized like this one is.
Can I say something? Rich is worried about the town not having some piece of this, right?
I agree with Ginny. We will end up having some piece of money above, should be on the $531,000.
Yes, we will.
Um,
It's hard, you can't have somebody digging in this town and not have the utility department in this town involved. You just can't. So you're going to be involved.
My
Regardless.
major concern with the questions was ensuring that CRC is not hamstrung by this. They call the whole thing.
That's fair.
And that's,
They don't look like they are.
well, and I mean, looking at the figures is right. Those figures, I mean, I did not know. I knew about what their balance was from the monthly reports, but I didn't know what those commitments were. I mean, when I used to do that sheet to track those things. But I didn't know what was going forward, that, and how that would affect the balance.
It's not like it was at one time going forward. I mean, we're in a much better position today than we were, 3 or 4 years ago with unfunded commitments, like I said.
Harry, did you have a motion?
Yeah, I mean, I would make a CRC motion to fund this entire project for $531,000. I'm sorry, $531,023.17.
71 cents.
17 cents.
Do I have a second from anyone else in CRC?
I'll second that motion.
Since Karen doesn't vote, I think
Right.
we can just go ahead and we don't have to have a roll call.
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any opposed? Same sign.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're ready for part 2.
I am handing out a draft, I'll emphasize a resolution. The local Ready Committee met to discuss projects. The one solid one we know we have forward on because we have private funding. And just so if you're not aware, with a Ready grant, you take the total project cost, let's call it 10 million, just for easy round figures. 60% of that has to come from private funding. 20% of it is the Ready grant, and 20% is a match from local government or redevelopment. So the idea of Ready then is to attract private investment in your community for your project. The one that we have someone who wants to do the development on the south end of town that you all are aware of. They are very interested in us applying for a Ready grant because housing qualifies for Ready dollars. And what we're told is it from all the meetings they've had with us, it needs to be a rather large housing project and something transformational, something that will impact the region. This is obviously a large housing project. So I've reached out to Mr. Collins and his attorney, Brooke Richardson, to talk about the fact that the deadline is August 15th. That doesn't mean that everything has to be shovel ready and perfect to go. The Ready Committee from South Bend Elkhart is telling us that by the end of 2024, everything has to be lined up and ready to go financially, construction ready, et cetera. By the end of 2026, you have to have spent the money. So it sounds like a long time, but it's really not. As you all know from working on stellar projects, these can be 2 to 4 year long type of projects. Mr. Collins' first phase of his housing project is he has an estimate of 9.8 million on that. The good news of that is if it's under 10 million, we can avoid a tax situation on his end. So knowing that, we would be trying to apply for 20% of that 9.8, and that $9.8 million phase would include utilities and infrastructure. You can't do phase 2 if you don't have utilities in and you don't have roads started. So I went back and looked at some of the stellar resolutions and some of the other legal documents we put together for these types of projects. And I've written a resolution that I want to just quickly go through. I'm not asking for a vote tonight unless you're, perfectly comfortable with that. But I would be asking for you to vote on this before August 15th, because if I'm gonna fill out and take the time to do a grant application with their attorney, et cetera, I'm gonna need to know. And we do not have to have exact numbers. We have to have a support letter, a commitment type of letter that says we're willing to make this match. It could be that when we actually crunch numbers, it becomes a $9.1 million project. It's a little bit like when we did regional cities with Kevin Berger. We did not, the CRC did not have quite the expense we were expecting to pay for utilities and infrastructure there. So Kevin didn't get the full amount of that regional cities grant. So, nothing's gonna work out to the penny on these projects, just, FYI. So what I've said is, whereas the town of Culver's applied for Ready grant funding, and whereas the Culver Redevelopment Commission has identified certain housing projects and improvements, and it has identified funds to be pledged and authorized for said projects, and whereas Culver Redevelopment is creating a new tax incremental financing district in which to locate that housing project and improvements, now therefore let it be resolved. And in this resolution, I've listed how I think this would work for us. First line being CRC would be pledging and authorizing a regional city's matching expense toward a Ready award to support a $9.8 million housing development project and improvements. Those funds would be used for extension of municipal water, sewer, and road infrastructure. We could not use them, for example, to put up siding, roofing, etc. The Culver Redevelopment Commission would authorize up to 70% of the total tax incremental financing created from the new tax incremental district in which the housing development would be located. This district will be located on the west side of South Main Street from Davis Street to Tamarack Road. So I'm basically saying, once we form that incremental tax district, we would not commit more than 70% of those funds to this Ready match. And I only came up with that number because of some of the conversations we've had with Mr. Richardson and Al. CRC financing for the utility and road infrastructure shall be contingent upon the property owner. And I don't have the name of his new LLC for this. I intend to insert that there. Signing a development agreement with the town of Culver and Culver Redevelopment Commission. In other words, we're only going to make the match if he signs a development agreement. And that's a requirement of annexing his Tamarack Road property. It's not a requirement of this one because it's been annexed, but we do require development agreements when we're giving CRC funding. The Culver Redevelopment Commission intends to approve funding and execute the necessary contract agreements on behalf of the town to complete the project listed herein for the purposes of the Ready project, if the Ready funds are awarded. If they're not, this agreement doesn't mean anything. This resolution wouldn't mean anything. The Culver Redevelopment Commission may pursue additional grants that would be of assistance in funding this. And the funding herein will provide overall matching funds for Ready. I've also noted the funds must be TIF eligible expenses as required by Indiana code. I found that line in just about everything we produced during the Stellar and Regional Cities agreements. So knowing we're thinking about working out this agreement with Mr. Collins and Wade McGee, I've kind of outlined that why not go after some Ready dollars? It may be then we would have less of our own dollars involved. And the way that expenditure agreement works is if we create that TIF district, we prove we have the revenue to support the expense of utilities, the bank gives Mr. Collins that money up front, and it's our TIF money making the payment on his loan. So
we pledge that TIF money basically.
yeah, and because it would be upfront, that's how you get your 20% toward Ready. Because Ready's not gonna say, oh, you can pay it over 25 years.
Right.
But that's also not how that works on the developer end anyway. He's getting money to pay for that.
And the CRC commitment in this scenario is about $2 million paid for presumably by the new
By the
TIF
TIF.
over time.
Yeah, it would be 20% of the 9.8.
1 point,
Yeah.
not 1.9
Yeah.
something.
Now, in that development agreement, we could also include if CRC said, we'll commit the dollars to this development agreement only if, you know, these houses are priced as such, or only if you put a trail in, or only if you know, we would have some room in the agreement depending on what you all would want to do with that. Particularly if 40% of this phase one is, you know, covered.
I got two questions. In your 9.8 million, you said it could come in at 9.1. Should you have language in there say that says not to exceed 9.8 million? Do you want that language in there? And the second question
We
is,
would not exceed that number in the Ready application. So it's really to support a Ready award or Ready application. So
for maximum, you see what I'm asking?
yeah, either way, I'm not filling out an application that's over 9.8 million.
Okay. And then on this agreement, Jim Clevenger will look at it
Yeah, that's my
Bill-
plan.
Bill facility.
and Phil Facenda too. Yeah, both of them, yeah. Because it's TIF.
And Phil's
Right, Phil.
Phil's been active with Collins redevelopment.
Right. And
He and Jim
Interaction.
both have had meetings with
right.
Burke and Collins. We kind of had both of them involved.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
But anyway, it's a draft. Again, if we don't do this tonight, we need to do it before August 15th. So in that case, if you don't want to vote on this tonight, we could maybe meet a week from today. And do a special session for CRC.
Before council next week.
Our next CRC meeting is the 15th.
I know.
Is on the
But you could do a special
Right.
meeting before
Or
our
you
council
could
meeting next
change your
Tuesday.
meeting and not have two in a row and put other stuff on the agenda if you'd like. This could just be one agenda item. If you want to do it next Monday.
Or two, yeah.
I definitely don't want to do it the day the application's due, because it's gonna be a
No.
nightmare between now and then anyway.
Sally, I'll defer to you. You're the president.
Well, other than, what would you think of, what are your thoughts on passing it this evening with the caveat that the right wording for his LLC is in there and that the
The
attorneys approve of it?
So just to clarify this in my mind, so all we're really doing here, we're seeding future revenues from a new TIF
From a new TIF
district
district, right?
Right.
to a
Nice.
private enterprise to subsidize their development of the infrastructure.
And this is basically telling the Ready Committee, the RDA, that we would be committing to a match if they award us money.
Okay. So we have.
And if they don't award you money, it's null and void.
And this definitely is contingent on him signing a development
Right.
agreement with you as well. All that would have to be worked out before end of 2024.
Okay.
What needs to be done to create that new TIF?
A lot of legal work.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's gonna be
Um,
another item on
Tony, I
our
don't know
budget.
if you-
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Same type of
Okay,
thing
right.
that we went through last year.
But to your, like,
Well, and I wasn't for that. I was here for that session where she explained, went through a lot.
to your earlier point, none of this revenue is on the dashboard, right? Okay.
Right.
All right, this is outside of the dashboard universe.
Yeah, established.
Right.
Okay.
And that's one reason I put that paragraph in. This has to come off an established TIF. You can't just have our other money.
Mhm.
If we don't get it done,
Yeah,
Nothing happens.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
Right.
and I yeah, I want to confirm that with the attorney that I've written it in a way that protects us. Because I'm definitely not a legal expert on any of this.
And then-
It was just me digging.
Sure. And this 70% authorized up to 70%, that'll be dependent on how the numbers turn out, right? But we can't go more than 70% of the
You probably
revenue.
have to pass another resolution if you said, oh, we're okay with 80%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just put that because I didn't know if you guys would be comfortable. I didn't want to put up to 100% of it either.
Yeah, no, that's great.
So is it fair to say that we would be approached to enter into a development agreement regardless of whether or not the ready grant is awarded?
Yes.
And in that circumstance, so I'm thinking, is there a, this would seem to be, since we're supporting, the ready grant would go to the developers. So by doing this, we're working to support the developer. Is there an additional consideration we get for doing this versus what would come down the line if we don't?
To me,
do
the only thing you really pay for in these type of developments in a tip area is utilities and road. And so this money, this is specifically written that if we get ready dollars, it will only go toward these type of expenses. And my hope was that would mean your expenses as redevelopment would be less.
Okay.
That's kind of what I'm aiming for by
Mhm.
doing the grant at all.
Thank you.
But it does presume that you were interested in doing an agreement with them to some degree, yeah.
And without the ready grant, there's still a vehicle or mechanism through the new TIF regulations with the bond issue to support basically the same type of structure.
Right.
It's just the ready grant dollars.
Do the
aren't
same
in there
thing without the
20%.
ready grant.
So you're doing.
Yeah, Burke was approaching us to do an expenditure agreement or bond. Our attorney kind of leans more toward bond versus expenditure agreement, but so the thought being, okay, we're looking at spending, making an investment in this development. Maybe we start with trying to get the grant dollars first.
Which, if we get the ready dollars, that would cut our costs by 20%, roughly, the CRCs.
Over the course of the project.
Yeah, over the course of the project.
And keep in mind, the Ready Committee has said, we may not fund every project the full 20%. They will prioritize certain things, like if you're meeting the goals of South Bend Elkhort's RDA Ready Committee, and you're attracting talent and retention and workforce and some of the other goals, they have population growth. Well, this clearly meets population growth, right? But they may say, well, we'll do 15% of the 9.8.
But
Well, I think we could vote on it in terms
anything
of
is
what,
better than nothing.
Well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Hate to use it.
but what Sally indicated, I think we could vote on it based upon the attorneys.
Mhm.
So
Good with that.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve this resolution 22 or 20,022-001
So moved.
with the assuming that the attorneys approve of this contract and any minor changes.
Certainly,
And the
give you
name.
a red flag email. I need to come back to
Right.
with the
And
major
the name
change.
of this property is correct at the time. Being printed. We have a motion,
second,
second from Tony. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes
I will
unanimously.
get it out to both attorneys, just so know that they will send us a bill for that. So I'm assuming you're okay with that as well.
What this enables us to do is just to move forward as quickly as possible and as quickly and as prudent as possible in getting these two projects going. And, you know, if, with the commitment that, you know, CRC gave us tonight, you know, hopefully it'll get some of these other people that got a wish list off their rear ends and come to us, because they can see that CRC is willing to make commitments, and the town's willing to make a commitment too. I mean, you go back to the fiber hut. I mean, they're increasing the size of that fiber hut because we're going with surf. And, you know, I think the original cost to put that fiber hut in was around $75,000. And now they're gonna be committing, I've heard, around $150,000 because it needs to be a lot larger. So, you know, we did shorten the lease from 50 years to 25 years with renewable at that time. So, I mean, we're moving forward.
If media isn't on, I would like to write a press release on fiber coming to Culver, and some of the things the broadband fiber task force have talked about is educating the public along the way and helping to sort of market this as an option. So to get that sort of rolling too, I'd like to put something together. I want to have you all authorize me to send that with the fiber task force's approval, because they're the ones really in touch with why we want to put certain messaging out there, and we have a consultant on that task group. You know, anything I would put out, that we need to announce to the public this is happening.
Well, and what's really exciting is that it can happen as quickly as
Right.
maybe it can happen. That's the,
Well, do I have a
That's the
motion?
amazing part.
Do I have a motion from council to allow Jenny to go ahead and put together a press release on these two items? Motion been made and seconded that we allow Jenny to work on press release on the broadband as well as the Readi grant.
And should I do the same for CRC? Is there a motion from CRC to,
Well, let me get this one done.
oh, okay,
All of
sorry.
For council, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Question related to that. Should, if this is probably gonna be going on for a while, should there be a face? Like you, I don't know, is your committee chaired by anybody? I mean, you're involved in all of these different things, but I wonder if it might be an opportunity for somebody else on that committee to become the face of this with the media. This is a, I don't know.
Yeah, if I can get a volunteer, that'd be great.
Your face doesn't do. Not that.
You don't want this page on.
No.
I'm gonna quote the task force members in
Okay,
it
all right.
anyway and get their permission.
Okay.
Just because I think that's like, they've put a lot of time into this.
For the CRC members, do I have a motion to approve Jenny writing this letter and putting our names on it?
Well, you know, you're doing the press release.
Yeah, press the letter, press release.
yeah, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Just a technicality.
Let's see, what else we got here?
Citizen.
Next, we have citizen input. Is there anyone online for citizen input?
Kind of a little late for that right now, right?
Anyone in the room for citizen input?
Of that broadband commitment by the town, 530,000. Is any of that recoverable through any kind of municipal taxes that might be assessed on the subscriber bill?
Not that I know of, but that's,
I just thought, what, does the town benefit financially by passing this through?
For redevelopment or?
Well, no, through a billing. Is there any line item on the bill that
There could
would
be a utility check
No.
associated with something like this.
That I'm aware of. Yeah, not that I know of either, and I think it's all the agreement between the provider and you, the user. So if there is a tax there, I'm unaware.
If we look at my MediaCom bill right now, just get internet, there's no tax for internet.
right, it's just a flat,
But for leasing the modem and the two amplifiers, there's sales tax on it. But when, you know, you get cable, there's all these franchise taxes, this and that. I don't think that's migrated into the, internet space, those taxes. So,
Any other citizen input?
But thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank the committee for their work on
Yes.
thanks for
short period of time. Fourth, distribution.
Any council issues? Council issues? Rich, you got anything? And Bill? Sally? I don't. A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.
There's-
Was there something, a facade thing, or was that be taken up next?
that's on the 15th.
Look at that at the CRC meeting room 15.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Exciting stuff.
Thank y'all.
It's not.
All right.
Yeah, I appreciate you and